Greetings, my friends. Mykwann here. Gregorian calendar date October 25th, Gregorian calendar year 2024. And what began as what I thought would be just like a one-time video, and then I would move on to, other topics. There's a lot on my plate right about now. This is a topic which has legs and it keeps pulling me back in. So with that being said, let's just jump right into this. I received this email yesterday from Anna, and let me read this, or part of it at least. Hi, Mike. I hope this email finds you well. I've been a long-time listener of your work, and I actually was a participant at the water arrow weaving eclipse ceremony back in April. I wanted to share this info about the 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant, which is on the Susquehanna. I'm going to jump down to here. There seems to be some interesting parallels with AI, timeline manipulation, the energy crisis we might be moving towards, and of course the Susquehanna River. Your work regarding reality, grounding, and just general noticing of the world as it changes is becoming more and more important and relevant as things get stranger and stranger. I wish you continued luck on your journey. So we're going to talk about what's happening right now on the Susquehanna River and 3 Mile Island. And this weaves in perfectly with all that I've been talking about as it relates to the different storms, Helene and Milton. But it also, connects with the very beginnings of the Susquehanna mystery. And I'm kind of doing this video on the fly. Sometimes it might take me a week to pull something together, but I just needed to work on this immediately. And I'm going to do my best to tie it all together. And for those of you who've been following along for a long time, it should be pretty clear. For some of you who are maybe just like jumping into this midstream, it might seem just a little bit all over the place. But what I'm really trying to do is paint a picture of interconnectivity between events that we are experiencing and showing how it all connects back to, or one of the places it all connects back to is the Susquehanna River, the Susquehanna mystery, and all of that sort of stuff. So let's jump right in. So what Anna was talking about is that Microsoft, the Bill Gates company, they just made a deal to help restart the 3 Mile Island nuclear plant. And this article came out September 26, 2024, which was the day before Helene moved into Asheville. And let's go back. I started the Helene video with just the correlation between the River and Stars circulation tour, which we did this spring and summer, and how the last place we did it was in Asheville in the French Broad. But another place we did it, and we did this on May 1st, was at the Falmouth Boat Drop in Bainbridge, Pennsylvania. You can see right here, May 1st, 2024. In space, the event's location is home to the geological mystery known as the potholes of Conowingo Falls, the notorious 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant, and the right of integration from the rights of the 40th parallel. That's where this Falmouth boat drop is. Here you can see this is the Falmouth boat drop, This is where 3 Mile Island is. It's right on the Susquehanna River. These are the geological mystery which I make reference to. I've talked about Falmouth boat drop and these rocks many, many times. So let's go back to this article. If the 3 Mile Island comes back online, Microsoft will be the one benefiting, as its long-term power purchase agreement would secure enough energy to power roughly 800,000 homes every year, except in this case, it'll be used to help run the company's data center infrastructure for the region. This isn't the first recent sign of big tech. This isn't the first recent sign big tech is jumping in on nuclear power. Earlier this year, Amazon purchased the data center right next to the Susquehanna nuclear power plant, also in Pennsylvania. What the MIT review did not say is that both of these power plants and data centers are on the Susquehanna River. While Amazon will only use part of the output of the Susquehanna plant, Microsoft will buy all the power that the 3 Mile Island produces. So 3 Mile Island is a nuclear power plant. It is probably one of the 3 most notorious nuclear power plants in the world. The other 2 being Chernobyl in Russia and then Fukushima in Japan. Though the 3 Mile Island one is probably most notorious because it was the first to kind of have a major supposed meltdown. But we'll get into that in a little bit more in a moment. So we see that Microsoft is building a data center, and it's going to be powered by the Susquehanna River, or the Susquehanna River will be used in the process of, I guess, cooling. That's what they do in nuclear power plants, is they use the water to cool the enriched uranium. I mean, I'm the nuclear physicist, but I think that's how it works. And Amazon, Amazon has done the same thing. I've talked about Amazon for a while as an example of river goddess worship, particularly when I talked about river goddess worship as a theme. I mean, this was years ago. I would use Amazon as an example of the world's largest retailer tapping into at least the concept through name of the role of what a river may be in this realm. So Amazon Web Services acquires Talon's nuclear data center campus in Pennsylvania. This came out March 4th, 2024. So this was also this year. This predates the lunar eclipse in March by about 20 days, so I'm not exactly going to be tying that in with it, but it's certainly close. And we'll get into the date of the release of that statement of Microsoft in a moment. Here's a picture. Amazon buys nuclear power data center from Talon, Susquehanna nuclear power plant, Salem Township, Pennsylvania. So let's keep going with this. In announcing its deal with Microsoft, Constellation Energy, the owner of the 3 Mile Island Unit 1, also shared that the plant is getting a rebrand. The site will be renamed Crane Clean Energy Center. This is from the author of this article. I'm not sure if that one's going to stick. The confluence of the particular location of this reactor and the fact that the electricity will go to power data centers and other infrastructure makes this whole announcement instantly attention-grabbing. As one headline put it, Microsoft AI needs so much power, it's tapping the site of nuclear, tapping site, it seems like they're missing a word there, of U.S. nuclear meltdown. It's tapping the Susquehanna River, actually, or at least that's how I would frame it up. But there's some funny things written in the language of this article. First is, the use of confluence. Um, I used confluence quite frequently when describing the River and Stars ceremony because it begins at Sunbury, which is the primary confluence of the Susquehanna River. But then, most interestingly, most amusing, if you will, is that it's called Crane Clean Energy Center. Now, mind you, this article was released on the 26th of September, about 2 weeks before Milton, hit Florida, which was the topic of one of my more recent videos. And within that video, I made very, very special emphasis on the fallen crane. We're just playing here. This is how they're showing it to us. This is really it. CC, Crane Clean, for those people who like the 33, the third letter of the alphabet. I think also the article was written by another CC. Go and take that however you want to take it with it. And this is from the actual the company itself, not the MIT article, but this is their own press release. Constellation to launch Crane Clean Energy Center, restoring jobs and carbon-free power to the grid. Again, this also ties into a lot of the stuff we looked at as related to Asheville and Asheville's role in the carbon credit scheme, which is being applied to corporations and countries throughout Earth right about now. But we see that. But what I really want to go and do is, let's talk about the word constellation for a moment, right? A group of stars forming a recognizable pattern that is traditionally named after its apparent form or identified with a mythological figure. That's what we know a constellation as. But its origin, going back to Middle English, is an astrological term denoting the relative position of the stars. No matter how we want to look at it, like constellation has some sort of correlation to stars. And so Constellation's power plant, right on 3 Mile Island, right here, is this where 3 Mile Island is, right in the middle of the Susquehanna River, is quite literally a river and stars ceremony. No matter how you want to look at it. Well, I guess not no matter how you want to look at it, if you want to frame it up in terms of looking at the language of the birds from that perspective. And what I think is most interesting is all of this is being done for Microsoft, Bill Gates, Microsoft, and all that Bill Gates is connected with. They're buying all of the electricity, all of the results of a nuclear power plant. It's all going to Microsoft. Let's go look a little bit deeper at Constellation. So Constellation is a public company. They were formed 25 years ago, and they are headquartered in Baltimore, Maryland. Remember, all of this also connects with Baltimore, Maryland. Why? Because in the eclipse window, every eclipses come in pairs. There will be a lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse, and they will be separated by approximately 14 days from the new moon to the full moon. Eclipses only occur on new moons and full moons. And so the solar eclipse, which occurred on April 8th, which got all of the attention, and it's the beginning of the River and Stars ceremony, was kicked off by a lunar eclipse, and that was on March 25th, and that was when the Key Bridge fell in Baltimore. This is the Key Bridge right here, or collapsed. And, you know, here we've got Constellation. This is their headquarters right here. This is right next to Fells Point, for those of you who are familiar with Baltimore. And yes, this says the Patapsco River, and the Patapsco River, you can see it gets really wide right here. It flows right into the Chesapeake Bay, or the Susquehanna River. These are the thumbnails of videos which I made in the lead up to the solar eclipse, talking about comets, eclipses, and bridges. Here we see another video which I did, and if you recall, the ship that brought down the key bridge was called the MV Dali, and that certainly brings in connotations to Salvador Dali, who is at least the face of the surrealist movement. You know, that was what this video was all about. And when you know, looking at the Milton storm and the correlation to Tampa Bay, St. Petersburg and Tampa as cities are both on the same body of water, which is called the Tampa Bay. And there's just, you know, obviously a correlation between the Tampa Bay and the Chesapeake Bay, and the fact that they're both bays, they're both natural harbors. And one of the things which I find most intriguing was the fact that Johns Hopkins, which is based out of Baltimore, has a secondary campus, and that is found right here in St. Petersburg, very, very close to where that crane fell. I covered all of that in the Milton video, but also right there, some 20-some years earlier, 1980 was where the bridge collapsed in Tampa. So now we're seeing, you know, we're just looking at correspondences, you know, the Baltimore collapse. Then we've got this from way back when, which actually corresponds with 3 Mile Island a bit, in timeline at least, but we'll get to that in a moment. You know, you see these two images juxtaposed, looking rather similar. But then also, as I talked about in the Helene video, is there was a third bridge collapse which falls into all of the storyline, and that was the Columbia-Wrightsville Bridge that fell as a result of the 1896 Cedar Key hurricane. And in the video which I talked about that, well, first off, before I mention that, this is at the 40th parallel and the Susquehanna River. Key location in all of the Susquehanna mystery, in fact, probably the most significant location, which then further ties in to, you know, just this woven web of interconnectivity, of just like, you know, of all of these things being connected on the periphery. You know, if they're connected on the periphery, what you're doing is you're creating a massive screen, whereas if the screen is big enough, you can't see past it. You know, I'm being metaphorical right now, but maybe I'm being literal. And we are identifying all of the tent stakes, if you will, of what's holding the screen in place. And so how Helene connected to the Cedar Key hurricane was, you know, in time and space in 128 years. Again, I'm covering information I have gone over in the past. So for those of you who aren't familiar in detail of what I'm talking about, like, go back and look 2 weeks ago, and like, this is what we were talking about, and it's becoming more and more clear. That's what I mean. This story keeps pulling me back in. So, all right, TMI, Susquehanna, and River Goddess Worship. This is from a presentation and videos which I made probably about 8 or 9 years ago. It was called The Goddess Susquehanna. The ancient river is the Rosicrucian High Altar. This is the next slide. You could see that I put copyright 2016, so about 8 years ago. Copyright. That was back when I was worried about things like copyright, I suppose. Um, and in that video, these are all slides from this presentation, which comes back from 2016. I named this area of the Susquehanna River as the Goddess Corridor, Columbia, Marietta, 3 Mile Island, or TMI, and then right here, the Dolphin Narrows. And, I made reference at the time to the proximity of Hershey, just pointing out the wordplay of her and she, as it relates to the feminine and the concept of the goddess corridor and goddess worship. Also from the slides, this is where I got into the goddess Columbia, and we see the goddess Columbia pictures and the Statue of Liberty, and then how we see the same Statue of Liberty on the Seine. Remember, the Seine is the Susquehanna. This is the river in Paris. We talked about this in the video as well with the Parisian Olympics. This is the same statue we see almost in perfect proportion with what you see in the Seine. This is in the Susquehanna right here. This is all part of like that goddess worship video. And then specifically in that video, I go into TMI as wordplay as to the goddess Tiamat. As in Tiamat and TMI, they are phonetically similar. And so from a esoteric perspective, there's this concept of green language, or the language of the birds, or cant is another word for it. But it basically talks about how words that are phonetically similar, which leans into the Phoenicians, are interchangeable. And this is a concept also very complementary to the doctrine of signatures, punning, wordplay. Francis Bacon was instrumental in formulating modern English to be very, very fluent in the use of wordplay, or easy to use wordplay. And wordplay is, this is deep psychological stuff, because when words sound the same but have different meanings, it allows communication to occur on a deep level of consciousness, when just saying something one way where the implication of the meaning is one thing, but there's a double implication because the word is phonetically is similar, and on deeper levels of consciousness there is no distinction between words that sound the same. So anyway, so TMI, Tiamat, in the Mesopotamian religion, Sumerian, Assyrian, Akkadian, Babylonian, so that's the Mesopotamian religion. Tiamat was a primordial goddess of the ocean. She is the symbol of chaos and primordial creation. All of this magic, quote unquote magic, is based upon resonance. We're looking at things that are similar so that energy flows. How and why that works, I don't know. That's just how this realm works. It's not a concept that is, it can be seen through cymatics. It can be seen through a piano. Like, vibration translates to the physicality. Okay. It is suggested that there are two parts of the Tiamat mythos. The first, in which Tiamat is the creator goddess through a sacred marriage between salt and fresh water. Salt and fresh water, what happens when they meet? Or what do you call that when they meet? You call that an estuary. That's what the Chesapeake Bay is. Peacefully creating the cosmos through successive generations. And the second, Tiamat is considered a monstrous embodiment of primordial chaos. That would be the wild woman archetype. Lilith is another example of this archetype in motion. The fact that there are two different versions of the same primordial sort of creator goddess is, to me, significant. Tiamat is the Sumerian Babylonian mother chaos goddess. She is an elemental power force and chaos that was split in two to form the heavens and earth. What does Tiamat do? Are they splitting atoms? I don't know if they split atoms when they do nuclear power plant. Maybe that's what they say they do when they make a bomb. I don't know. But we're dealing with some similar language, at least. She is depicted as either a serpent or a dragon and is the personification of primordial waters from which all life was formed. We are on the Susquehanna River, the oldest river on the planet. Or, some people get all bent out of shape when I say oldest. It's the oldest river system. It's definitely, of all of the old ones, it's the one which is like most prevalent in our modern world because it's what Washington, D.C. is on. It's, all of the other stuff which I've always talked about. So whether it's the oldest or the fifth oldest, I think you're splitting the wrong hairs here. Like, this is primordial water. We can just leave it at that. And now we have, in the language of the birds, Tiamat and Tiamat are linked in. Primordial, the beginning. How do you influence life? You go to the beginning. Okay. Brought forth the monsters of Mesopotamian pantheon, including the first dragons whose bodies she filled with poison instead of blood. When they say she, they're talking about Tiamat. So they turned the blood into poison. Well, that was supposedly the whole sort of thing with the 3 Mile Island meltdown, was that you would have radiation poisoning. And what does radiation poisoning do? But it turns blood into poison. Like these are resonances. So when you have something similar in concept, there's a link to it. No. All right. For those of you who don't remember or don't know 3 Mile Island, 3 Mile Island is a nuclear power plant located in the Susquehanna River. Let me see. I'm going to have to expand this to read it. The 3 Mile Island accident was a partial nuclear meltdown that occurred on March 28, 1979. It was the most significant accident in the United States nuclear power plant in United States commercial power plant history. There's all sorts of weird stuff about 3 Mile Island. There is a decent amount of evidence that the whole 3 Mile Island thing was just a psyop, that nothing actually happened. I don't know if that's true or not, but what I do know is that there was a really weird thing that happened with Hollywood. A movie called The China Syndrome, which was all about a nuclear meltdown, they made a movie out of it, and it was released 2 weeks before the 3 Mile Island nuclear meltdown occurred. So that was always really interesting. Right here we could see 3 Mile Island accident. This is Jimmy Carter touring the control room on April Fool's Day in 1979. Maybe they're related. I don't know. Governor of Pennsylvania Dick Thornburg was there as well. So this is really interesting too. And this kind of supports, at least in my opinion, the PSYOP sort of narrative. So 3 Mile Island is located, there's Harrisburg. This is 3 Mile Island. Harrisburg is the capital of Pennsylvania. This is where the governor's located. And so, I look at it like in terms of, like, let's use baseball as an example. Like, you've got this whole continuum of baseball going all the way from little league to major leagues. And in between, you got like a little league coach and maybe a high school coach and maybe a college coach, and then maybe a manager, a minor league manager. And then you have like the pros. And in each one of those arenas, the manager is the guy who's in charge. But the manager maybe of a college baseball team might aspire to becoming a minor league manager, or maybe a minor league manager might aspire to be a major league manager. There's always a moving up. And so we can see the same thing happens in politics, whereas arguably the most significant political infrastructure on Earth right now would be like global politics, so United Nations and stuff like that. And what we see here is Dick Thornburgh, who was the governor of Pennsylvania during the 3 Mile Island event. Governor of Pennsylvania, I would say, would be the equivalent of being like a minor league manager. You know, the governor of a state, like that's got to be a pretty cool job or an important job if you're into politics, but it's kind of small compared to like the president, and that might be small compared to like the UN Secretary General. So anyway, Dick Thornburgh parlayed being the governor of Pennsylvania to becoming the undersecretary of the United Nations. That was a really, really big jump. And the same thing happened during 9/11. There was, if you recall the details of 9/11, there was a plane that went down in Pennsylvania, which was supposed to hit the White House or something. I don't know what the story was, but it went down in outside of Pittsburgh, and that was part of the story related to 9/11, and the governor of Pennsylvania, who at that time, let me see if I can even remember his name, Tom Ridge, parlayed his role of overseeing that cleanup and that narrative of the portion of 9/11 that tied to the state of Pennsylvania. He was then what at least seems to be rewarded with then given a cabinet level position. So he went from being a governor to a White House level or a cabinet level positioning, which would be a big step, I would imagine, for that type of career. And we see the same thing happening with Dick Thornburgh. Sorry about the rabbit hole, but I don't know. That's where we went. So this is kind of interesting, just because we like to look at dates. March 28th, 79 was when 3 Mile Island occurred, and March 26, 2024, just about 45 years to the day later is when the whole Key Bridge collapse happened. Again, I'm just throwing that in there. We're collecting data points. Here we go. This is Falmouth. This is 3 Mile Island. This is where the River and Stars ceremony took place. I just made that video about Milton with Hershey. This is where Hershey is. This is where that Wrightsville Bridge and the 40th parallel is. I made a really interesting video, interesting in my opinion at least, about a triangulation that occurred for me in the Harrisburg area, and this is where Harrisburg is. So, all right. Let's switch gears a little bit. Data centers and the Susquehanna's long relationship. So we're talking about Tiamat because 3 Mile Island, Tiamat, this primordial goddess, is going to be used to power a data center, a Microsoft data center. And so the Susquehanna River has a long history with the computer industry. So we begin with this. This is from a video I made. When did I make this video? Also in 2016. And this was from, I'm pretty certain that this video is still available, or this slide is from a video that's still available on YouTube, which was called the 100-year timeline, maybe. And I basically followed the timeline between the first computer, ENIAC, and the said date of the coming singularity, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. So anyway, this is where it begins. ENIAC. ENIAC stands for the Electronic Numerical Integrator and Computer. It was invented by this guy, J. Presper Eckert and John Mockerly. It was built at the University of Pennsylvania. And the invention of this first all-purpose digital computer signaled the birth of the information age. So ENIAC was created in Philadelphia, but where ENIAC went, what it was used for was at Aberdeen Proving Grounds. So the first large-scale general-purpose electronic digital computer, ENIAC, was delivered to the U.S. Army's Ballistic Research Lab at Aberdeen Proving Grounds in 1947, was built by the University of Pennsylvania under Army Ordnance Corps contracts with technical supervisor by I'm trying to read this, Aberdeen Proving Grounds, ENIAC calculated artillery firing tablets. Anyway, ENIAC is the first computer. It's the birthplace of really the computer industry, and we see that the computer industry has always been linked to military contracts and also with research institutions. So this here's Aberdeen Proving Grounds. Let me make this bigger for you so you can see that. Aberdeen Proving Grounds. And where's Aberdeen Proving Grounds but right on the Chesapeake Bay, right where the Susquehanna transitions, where fresh water from the Susquehanna River meets the salt water of the Atlantic Ocean and becomes an estuary. Remember that the myth of Tiamat was that she dealt with the primordial mixing of salt and fresh water. So we see this right here. So we see the first computer, the beginning of the information technology industry, is grounded on the banks of the Susquehanna River, the Chesapeake Bay, the Susquehanna Bay, I think is a more accurate description. But that's not the only correspondence which the river has to the beginnings of the computer industry. IBM is the birthplace of IBM. IBM is at least at one point, was the leading computer manufacturer in the world. This might have been like 1970s, 1980s, maybe even more so in 1990s. I don't know what IBM is doing right now. But they were a really, really big deal for a period of time. And the birthplace of IBM is in Endicott, New York. And they began in 1911. So here we can see on this map, this is Endicott. This is the IBM system, which is now closed. You have Bay Systems right here, big military industrial contractor, and they are right on the Susquehanna River. And so we see another correlation between the birthplace of literally the information technology industry and then the birthplace of at least what was the leader of, for a period of time, a leader in the computer technology space. Let's go a little bit deeper. What role did IBM play in the history of computers? In the realm of technology, IBM introduced the world's first large-scale calculating computer. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. So part of, and I've talked about this many, many times, but I guess it's always good to tell it again, I suppose. So there is a word play between ENIAC and Enochian. ENIAC and Enochian magic. And so Enochian magic is said to be, a really sophisticated form of ceremonial magic. Aleister Crowley, if you're familiar with him, was an Enochian magician and so forth. So Enochian magic is a system of ceremonial magic based on the invocation and commanding of various spirits. It's based on the 16th century writings of Dr. John Dee. Dee's journals contain the Enochian script. And that's the general Wikipedia description, which we see. John Dee John Dee was the predecessor of Francis Bacon. He was the visionary who created the infrastructure which would become the British Empire, specifically as it was founded in Jamestown at the Jamestown Colony. He commissioned by Queen Elizabeth to establish the legal foundation for colonizing North America, the visionary of British Empire, and he's the guy who came up with, is credited with the Enochian magic. So Enochian magic, there's John Dee, ENIAC, the world's first computer, and then the first world's quantum computer is D-Wave, like John Dee waving to you. Both of them were introduced on roughly the same day, which is, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but the reason why Valentine's Day is on the 14th is based upon a much older tradition. Here's D-Wave. First computer, nuclear power. ENIAC, the first electric general purpose computer. You see pictures of it, Aberdeen Proving Grounds, so forth. So here we have John Dee. This is D-Wave right here. The founder of D-Wave was Gordy Rose. And that's great also because Dr. John Dee was supposedly the founder of the Rosicrucian order as well. Rosicrucians go really deep in the Susquehanna mystery. This is talk about quantum computers. Computers built on the principles of quantum physics as opposed to classical physics promise a revolution on the order of the invention of the microprocessor or splitting of the atom. Again, there's more reference to nuclear power, nuclear energy. D-Wave, a small Canadian company backed by Jeff Bezos, Amazon, NASA, we talked about NASA in the Milton, and Cape Canaveral, and the CIA, among others, they were all involved with D-Wave. And so we go now and look. This is probably like 10 years old. I wrote this in 2016, or I found this description in 2016. Today, the top 10 quantum computing companies, and what do we have right here? We've got Amazon and we've got Microsoft. And we see that both of their very cutting edge data centers, which are quantum computer data centers, are back on the Susquehanna River, almost doing a full loop, if you will, from the Enochian magic, all the stuff which we're seeing, what is going on? I don't know. But we can see, this is what I mean by, I said in the beginning of this video that there are these tent stakes, this was the metaphor. And these tent stakes are holding up a large screen. And then on that screen, something is projected on it. And everyone is focused upon what's being projected on the screen. And what we're doing right now is we're looking at what's holding the screen up and asking questions like, what even is the screen, right? So this was also from 2016. The creator of D-Wave quantum computer artificial intelligence is the altar of an alien god. Science is bringing about the Antichrist system. So that probably doesn't sound like something that came from Newsweek. But it's interesting to go and put all of this in context, as we're trying to go and make sense of both our individual lives as they continue to unfold, and in the backdrop of what's at least happening in paradigm and probably impacting your day-to-day life. So I'm going to begin to wrap this up. these are some funny slides I made probably around 2018. I think I posted them once on Instagram. They're probably buried at the very bottom of the Instagram feed on my account, but you could see these characters are all in play. Hello, I'm John von Neumann, father of the first computer, ENIAC. Please join me and this blue ribbon panel of experts as we unveil the esoteric foundation behind information technology. So this is a conference, Enochian magic, computer technology, and the singularity. There's Gordy Rose. Sophia, if you ever remember her videos, which were making the rounds, like probably 2018. There's Bezos, there's John D. ENIAC is right there. Here's another one I made. Sophia saying, hey, this is Dr. D practicing Enochian magic before ENIAC. That's an Enochian circle right there. We've got Neumann, or the new man, because that's what this seemingly is all about. I didn't even get into that with theosophy, but yesterday's science is today's technology. And then this one right here, we've got D and Bezos working together at the quantum 3D printer, series 800 model TO1. We've got these cans of black goo making everything for Amazon, D-Wave quantum printing and computing, cutting-edge solutions and ancient practices for the emerging multiverse. Bezos, we're running low on black goo. Pronto, pronto. You got it, boss. I don't know. I thought this was kind of funny. I was having a lot of fun. I remember when I used to make these videos, or these slides. That was a while ago. Anyway, so 46 minutes into it. So let's go and at least bring this back to something. I concluded the end of the Milton video with the description of this grounding consciousness course, and I'm going to go and do that again. This is a course which a course with 5 different classes, which is going to begin in December 1st of this calendar year. The new moon prior to the winter solstice is another way of stating when it's going to begin. And yes, this is astrologically based, but it is astronomically grounded. So for anyone who has any practice in astrology, I would highly recommend this course. But even if you're not, what this course is about and why it's called Grounding Consciousness is it is the techniques and the information to take one's consciousness outside of the closed loop system of paradigm, which is built upon the idea of false time. And so these are the techniques to do that for the purpose of, like, you have to remain physically grounded and emotionally grounded during these times, but also mentally grounded. And this is what one of those techniques are. And by being mentally grounded, you are able to take in all of this sort of information which I just shared with you. I mean, like what do you do with that? Well, you don't really do anything with it other than you have a greater awareness that, like, there's something unfolding. I'm not going to define it. I don't even know if I can define it. I could make guesses. But that's less important. It's like you want to ground it into something real, knowable, and observable. As real, knowable, and as observable as it can be in this great mystery which we're experiencing together. And by doing so, you don't get lost in it. Like, I just told you a whole bunch of different stuff. And it could be very, very easy to get lost in that information. Not lost in terms of, like, I don't follow you, but get lost in it, like your head is spinning and what do I do and how do I continue to move forward within my life? And so that's what this course is really about. As I indicated, I'm having an early bird special for anyone who signs up prior to November 1st. So that would be 6 days from the recording of this video. And it would be a discounted price. I've already had 7 people sign up. There are 20 spots available, so there are 13 spots remaining. And go to the Linktree link in the description below to find out more information about it. Next week, I'm going to go down to Austin, and I think I'm going to be in front of a pretty big audience on a podcast. If you're watching this video, you're probably one of 1,000 people, I suppose, who watch this, but there's going to be a much, much bigger audience coming forward. So my sense is after that appearance, that most of these spots are going to be gone. So anyway, this is Mike. This is a great journey to share with people. Anna, who sent me that email, I'm greatly appreciative of that sort of link which I get to have with people who are watching this. I don't get to see you face to face, and undoubtedly we are exploring this together. So take good care. Enjoy the weekend.